Hello, everybody. I'm Logan Crawford, and this is the award-winning TV talk show right here on Ebru Fresh Outlook. The 26th presidential race is on. The nation's first primary is over, and the winners are Bernie Sanders for the Democrats and Donald Trump for the Republicans, both men easily crushing the competition. But just how representative is New Hampshire of the United States? And what can America expect as the race moves on to South Carolina and then to Super Tuesday? I'm joined by our panel of experts today. Alan Sanders, a political science professor at St. Peter's University, Bill Rosenberg, a political science professor at Drexel University, and John Boyd, principal of the Boyd Company, a management consulting firm. Bill, I'll start with you. What's the headline this week? Are we looking back to New Hampshire, or are we looking ahead to South Carolina and Nevada?
I'd probably say both. I mean, we're looking at following up on two primary caucus events that both are very unrepresentative of the United States, but they were the first taste, you might say, of the meal. It ended up sorting out some of the candidates that dropped out now, like Chris Christie, Carly Fiorina. We're going to see probably Ben Carson drop out after this week. And as a result, we're getting the issues out, but not really a true sense of what the public is thinking. Trump is clearly out in front of the Republicans, but Trump is in a lane all by himself. He's not really competing with the Kasichs, the Rubios, the Bushes. And until those guys stop playing suicide with each other, he's going to continue to win.
Alan, what state would you say is representative of the United States? We say it's not Iowa, we say it's not New Hampshire. Well, it's not New York, is it? It's not California. I mean, where is typical America? Is there one state that characterizes that?
No, there's no one state that characterizes that, but what you want is a group of states. If you group some states together, and that's what the Super Tuesday primary seeks to do, to group a number of states, though it's heavily emphasizing the South. It's called the SEC primary for the South.
And that has changed over the years. That was traditionally Democrat for a while, then it's traditionally Republican. Right. Where does this SEC Super Tuesday contest lie right now?
Very soon. It's occurring in early March, I believe March 1st or thereabouts, in the early weeks of March. So we will have a far more broad and more representative set of states very soon. Having said that, if you take a look at Nevada and if you take a look at South Carolina, which is the two states that are coming up very quickly, you'll find that in Nevada you have a large Hispanic population. About a quarter of the voting, not the voting, but a quarter of the population is Hispanic. And if you look at South Carolina, again, about a quarter of that population is black. So you're going to get a broader demographic that is going to be able to speak at least very soon. When we dealt with Iowa and when we dealt with New Hampshire, you were dealing with a population that was over 90% white. So we're starting to get a broader set of demographics, but I think you'll really get a real sense when we start to get into the Super Tuesday states.
Let's turn to John for just a second, then I'll get to you, Bill. John, your focus is business and how the election impacts corporations. One of the states you're looking at closely is Nevada. Tell me why.
Well, I think Nevada is a great example of a state that has a lot of different types of groups, not only the union issues that will play out, but also the Hispanic population. And the governor of Nevada, Brian Sandoval, is a wildly popular pro-business Hispanic Republican. And he's registering new Hispanics to the polls. I think that endorsement, who he decides to endorse, will be very influential in Nevada. You know, if you remember the old Nike slogan, "Be like Mike." Okay, I think in Nevada it's "Be like Brian." You know, what Republican has a more inclusive posture on immigration issues? And I think that's, you look at a candidate like Kasich or Bush or Rubio, seen as more moderate on immigration issues. And I think they have something to work with there.
True, if you're looking for a moderate, but it seems like few people this election cycle are looking for moderates, Bill. It seems like it is not only the year of the outsider, but the year of the extremist.
Well, I think there's a couple of things I'd just like to add to my colleague's point before I go on, is that when Super Tuesday comes along, we're likely to see many winners, okay? Because when you see sort of the more Rust Belt states, they're not going to vote the same way as some of the southern states. So it gives us an opportunity on one particular day when several states are all voting to see who plays well in which locations. The other big issue I think ultimately comes out is who turns out to vote. Okay, that's, I think, the cornerstone of what we're really talking about. There was an allegation for a long time that Bernie Sanders didn't have the ground game. He could maybe fight the air wars, but not the ground wars. He's been investing heavily for a long time in the ground game, and he also has the enthusiasm, the support of young people who look like they want to support him. Trump, on the other hand, in the other campaign, he also has the ground game in the sense that he goes and he gives rallies before 15,000 people. So it's the energized voters that really matter in primaries. It's not necessarily what percentage of the population is black or Hispanic. It's who's going to show up at the polls.
And this has been an energized electorate. We've been seeing record numbers so far, both in Iowa and New Hampshire.
Right, and I would add to what my colleague here said as well. You've got to look at three things when you're running for office. One is yourself, what kind of charisma, what kind of persona do you have? Also the issues, which issues resonate with the voters? And of course, organization, which boils down to party. And right now, many of the candidates are appealing to their party base. I mean, there's a persona element, there's an issue element, and there's an organizational element. The organizational element is, can you get your base out? Can you get your supporters out? What's interesting is that all of the candidates, most of them anyway, are playing to the base. If you pay attention to Hillary Clinton, she is doing a very careful balancing act. She is trying to play to the base, but she is also trying to play to the general electorate. And it's always something that's very sensitive to do because you need to win your primaries and your caucuses to get your nomination. But if you just go over the deep end, playing to your base only, you risk losing the general election. So the one to watch is exactly the kind of balancing act that Hillary does, not necessarily if you agree with her, but watch her. She is trying to stay in the main lane so that she can win the general election.
Kasich's also doing that.
Yes, absolutely.
John, I think it's interesting that moderate in many ways has become a bad word. They had video of Hillary Clinton saying that she was a proud moderate, and that was used against her. It's sort of like a strange election cycle when you have to say, it's a bad thing to seek moderation, to seek compromise, and try to get things done.
It is. Voters are sick of Washington politics, the idea of moderates and deal making. But I talk about immigration in Nevada because there is a streak of the Republican Party in that state that very much supports Governor Sandoval's initiatives, really, to create new opportunities for dreamers. Okay, so I think Rubio, I think Bush, I think Kasich have an opportunity there, something to work with there, to appeal to job-creating, more moderate Republicans that make up a big part of the Nevada electorate, Republican electorate. Now, on the Democratic side, which is interesting, some of Hillary's most passionate support is coming from the Culinary Workers Union, Local 226, which has 60,000 members in Nevada, and they're very hostile towards Bernie Sanders' revolutionary approach. They're very happy with their benefits. The casino industry historically has been very generous with health care benefits. They don't want to rock the boat. I think he has some big headwinds in Nevada.
Well, I think you make a good point. I think if you're invested in this economy, if you're invested in this society, if you are a secure union worker, you probably don't want revolutionary change. But if you're a young person who graduated college and now has $200,000 in student loans and a culinary degree and is looking forward to a $23,000 a year job, they might want Bernie Sanders, right?
But the reality also is that the power of unions has diminished enormously over the past 2 decades. So while it's important to have every group behind you, the power of unions has greatly diminished. And as a result, whether or not they're going to be able to pull off an election win for a candidate, perhaps in some states that's going to happen, but you have a lot of states that are, right to work states and so forth. So I don't think that unionism alone is, and I think that's one of the powers that if Sanders is to be successful, he's got to continue to really capture the imagination of the us versus them, and the us is the middle class and lower class, and saying, look, wealthy people are going to have to pay more in taxes. It's only fair. And it doesn't matter really whether you're a union person or not, because union people are still solidly at most in the middle class. So I think what we have to realize is that Hillary is going to be in this pivoting situation. She wants to challenge the Wall Street group, But she's
But she
also
takes
tainted.
$600,000
She's
checks
also
from them as
tainted
well.
by her connection to it.
I'm going to talk about another group of voters, and that is minority voters and black voters, which are seen going heavily towards Obama. Definitely went heavily towards Obama, but also towards Hillary Clinton, Alan.
Right, and you can see that Hillary Clinton is trying to capitalize on that. She came out with some very important endorsements for her, the Congressional Black Caucus. She is pivoting her candidacy and saying that she's basically the successor to Obama. That's both an appeal to the liberal vote, but it's also an appeal to the black vote. And she is certainly banking very hard on South Carolina, which, as I said, has about a quarter of its population as African American. So she clearly believes that she can appeal to that group of voters, both because of her record. She's been quite active and she's been quite present and has led the fight on some civil rights issues. She's positioning herself there because she's presenting herself as a successor to Obama. And so it's kind of interesting to see her. Now, Bernie Sanders is trying to do the same thing. But if you watch the debates between these two candidates, Hillary Clinton is trying to isolate Bernie Sanders and saying, you're a one-issue candidate. Yes, you come to the civil rights movement through the economic issues that you espouse. I come to the civil rights movement because I care about the civil rights movement as a movement and as an entity in and of itself.
Let's talk a little bit about that economic movement. Bernie Sanders wants to break up the banks. Is that good for your corporations that you represent? What do you think?
Obviously, I don't support anything that Bernie Sanders says on economic issues. But what I will say is this: I give him credit for being authentic.
I do too. He's extremely likable, extremely credible, and
he's
extremely
genuine.
charismatic.
I mean, he's genuine. So above and beyond the politics, he's genuine, and that clearly resonates. Millennials want authenticity. I mean, how do you sell any consumer good to the millennial marketplace? I mean, the battle for market share today is after millennials, and millennials want authenticity, and Bernie Sanders exudes authenticity.
Right. Well, somebody said recently that he's a chain restaurant in a shopping. She's a chain restaurant in a shopping mall. He's an independent coffee shop.
And he's making inroads in the black community. I mean, he's got the new endorsement of Ben Jealous. His social media campaign is targeting a lot of younger hip hop artists. So,
and he just sat down and broke bread with Al Sharpton as well.
The other thing that we should recognize is that Hillary is hitching her wagon to Barack Obama, and it's really interesting because Barack Obama's public approval rating is the highest it's been in quite some time. He's about 48% in the recent Gallup polls. As long as Obama is doing well for Democratic voters, that's a real plus. We have to realize, though, that at some points Obama's approval rating was in the 30s. While it was still more supportive in the Democratic Party, she's got the wind in her sails right now because Obama's pretty popular and she's hooking on to that train. And the question is, how long will that be? What fights are going to come up with Congress over the next couple of months? We're still, this idea of an election is a marathon. It's not one state or one election. It's not Arizona. It's not Nevada. It's not South Carolina. It's how do all these delegates add up? Plus, the one thing that people don't talk about are the superdelegates. Right. Hillary Clinton owns the superdelegates.
In fact, she left New Hampshire with more delegates than Bernie Sanders did, even though she got trounced in the vote. I need to get your predictions before we move on to the next segment. Bill, I'll start with you. What do we see as the race goes on?
One of these 9 people will be president of the United States.
That's a safe bet. Maybe not, unless it's Joe Biden or Mike Bloomberg. Go ahead, Alan.
I would say watch the winnowing between the establishment candidates. 3 are too many. That's why Trump wins the elections time and again, or at least the last 2, or the last one, I should say, and why he does so well. If the mainstream candidates can winnow themselves down, that is to say, if the electorate can choose one or the other, that will make a real contest between the outsiders, Mr. Trump, and the insiders, whoever emerges on the Republican side.
And John?
I don't see any alternative candidate really galvanizing support. I think Trump will be the nominee. I think Bernie will do much better than people expect. I see him making inroads with minority voters across the country. Ultimately, I think it will be Trump as the nominee. I think Bush will do very well in South Carolina. The Bush name has tremendous value in South Carolina. But on the Democratic side, I see Hillary being the nominee.
Okay. I agree with most of your predictions. I think it's going to be Trump. He seems to be a tour de force that is unstoppable unless something bizarre happens, but he's able to get away with the bizarre. And then on the Democratic side, I think that Bernie is going to continue to pummel Hillary, and we're going to see a different candidate come in, perhaps Joe Biden, perhaps Mike Bloomberg. When we come back, we're going to take a look at a crisis that is fomenting across the world, the Syrian migrant crisis, and what can be done to help those folks after this.